That's going to bring us on to green here. First green common is Seeker of Sunlight. Single mana for a 1/1. It's a Merfolk Scout. It's got an ability 2 and a green. Seeker of Sunlight Explorers activate only as a sorcery.
Sorcery again. Like, they're just killing us.
Yeah, just getting us for all these sweet instant things we could do. Yeah, I don't love this.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, it's so much mana for what you're getting. 2 mana would probably be a little too good. 3 mana feels a little too steep. If Merfolk was a more important creature type, I'd be more into this, but it's just not. There's just not that many things that care about Merfolk, so it's probably like a D level 1 drop.
I think I want to give it an F.
Oh wow, really? That's so if this explores once. Oh yeah, if it explores once and you don't hit a land, it's pretty bad. If you could always draw a land off that first activated ability, I'd be in for it, but just like kind of missing on it, it's pretty bad. Yeah.
And when are you going to activate it? On turn 3? Like, good luck.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go D-. Not exactly calling it unplayable, but I always respect an F. Honestly, I really do. Next up, we've got Basking Capybara. This is 1 and a green for a 1/3, and it's Descend 4. If you've got 4 more permanents in the grave, the Capybara gets +3/+0, so it becomes a 4/3.
Yeah, I've tried to give less C's. You know, the more we can deviate from the C's, the more interesting these things become.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. Capybara is tough to evaluate. We're getting into green now, so green's like pairs is Explore, Dinosaurs, Descend, and having greater power than base power. So 4 almost completely unrelated things, and kind of mishmash of everything. And this is trying to be like, okay, well, it has more base power and it's a Descend payoff, but it's just, I don't see green doing anything particularly well. So even though I think this card would be like pretty good if it was a black card, I'm not very high on it.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like, okay, it's a 1/3 for 2. That's really bad. And then when you do the thing, it's like fine. You've paid 2 mana for a 4/3, but at that point in the game, like it's nice. If this was always a 4/3 on turn 4, like it just had like, remove 2 counters each guy, or counter each upkeep. I think I'm not into the Capybara, despite it being a Capybara, which is pretty cool. So D.
I was gonna go D+.
Yeah, sounds good. Disturb Slumber, 1 and a green for an instant. Until on a turn, target land you control becomes a 4/4 dino creature with reach and haste. It's still a land, and it has to be blocked this turn if able.
So we've seen this card before, but I don't think it gave reach. But I was in March of the Machines, and I was a little bit generous, like not giving it a terrible grade in a set review, and then it turns out it was terrible. And I'm kind of tricking myself again, thinking that maybe it's just not straight unplayable.
So like, what's the best case scenario for this? You're using it as like on turn 3, you kill their 2. That's like kind of the upside there. At least not I'm sure you can come up with magical Christmas land scenarios where it's better, but
Okay. So what was it? A D-?
I'm gonna give it an F. I think you should just I think this card will not improve your deck.
I'm gonna stick with my optimistic D-.
Yeah, fair enough. Malamet Brawler up next. This is 2 mana for a 2/2, 1 and a green. When it attacks, target attacking creature gains trample until end of turn.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Again, your best decks are never gonna want this. It's not straight unplayable. This is like another D+, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say D+ for the Brawler. Over the Edge up next. 1 and a green for a sorcery. Choose 1. Either destroy target enchantment or artifact, or target creature you control explores twice.
Again, like, I don't like, if you're exploring twice, the idea is you're either in blue-green, which doesn't really seem supported, or you're trying to Descend, which this is a sorcery, so you don't want to play this. And there's just not enough artifacts or enchantments for this to be good. So I think this one, like, maybe we're going to give like a sideboard grade, I guess, instead of an F.
Yeah, I think this is like, you're going to bring this in when you want to disenchant. And for what it's worth, often a question that people ask is like, oh, is this a format where disenchant is main deckable? And we've got artifacts in this set. Remains to be seen, but often, even when it is main deckable, it's not like good. It's not like, oh, like you definitely want, we had sets like 20 years ago that was true, but the way that sets play out these days, they're not like all artifacts, even in your artifact heavy decks, or sorry, in artifact heavy sets. Maybe against blue white, you're gonna be thrilled about this card, but I think most other decks are gonna be like, yeah, I might find a target, I might not. So, sideboard.
Well, I do think like straight disenchant would be playable in this,
Mm-hmm.
but it wouldn't even be like insane because most of the like all the craft stuff that you're getting on the backside has already gotten value on the front
Right.
side.
Yeah. So just sideboard grade then.
Yep.
Poison Dart Frog. One in a green for a 1/1 reach, and it has tap, add 1 mana of any color. Also has pay 2, and the frog gains Death Touch till end of turn.
Yeah, so not bad early and
No.
not embarrassing late either. So I kind of like this little guy.
Yeah, me too. It's like I think it's actually one of the only generically good green commons we're going to see, which, speaks to greens, what we think green strength is. Yeah, it's fine. The whole thing with these cards, generally, these 2 mana dorks, is like, can it do something after it's kind of done its job of emptying your hand? Sometimes that thing is, I'm a deck that draws a bunch of cards or has a lot of places to put mana, and you never stop spending the mana. But in decks that aren't like that, the Death Touch is a nice little late game thing to do. So, yeah, C plus for the Dart Frog.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a C. I don't think it's
Yeah, it's nothing special.
something every
It's
deck's
fine.
never gonna cut. And it's also funny that like it doesn't support any archetype.
Right, it's just like a
Really.
thing.
Like, it's just a thing.
Yeah, just a thing. We got
Yeah.
Staggering Size up next. That capybara we were talking about, it hurt us, and it's gigantic now. It's 1 in a green for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains Trample until end of turn. Trample's a really good ability on a combat trick.
Yeah, run amok with upside.
Yeah, no, only attacking rider here.
And this is so good with the green-white uncommon.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
Ooh, yeah,
Like,
because you're always gonna deal damage. Yeah, or most likely.
Yeah,
gonna deal
always
damage.
deals damage and it always draws you a card, basically.
Yeah, there's definitely a big jump between 1 and 2 mana combat tricks and 2 and 3. Usually with 3, you're expecting a bit of value, like drawing a card or making a permanent. With 1, it's obviously very efficient. 2 is always that middle spot where it's like, could be good, could not be. And I think this one's probably more on the good side.
Yeah. Again, only in aggressive decks,
Yes.
right? Like not a controlling card at all. But in aggro, I think you're happy to play multiple of these. I think I'd give it a C plus.
Yep, I would say so too. What's up next?
Next we have Armored Kincaller, 2 and a green for a 3/3 dinosaur. When it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a dinosaur from your hand. If you do, or if you control another dinosaur, you gain 3 life.
I kind of dislike the design on this card. I think it's actually a fine card, but like it's the fact that it's this, dinos are aggressive and your payoff is like, all right, get a little bit of life. I can see this in a non-dino deck, so like a non-red-green deck, like green-black, and you just happen to have a bunch of green dinos, but...
Well, dinosaurs are like they're just going over everything, right? Like you're playing a bunch of 5 and 6 drops.
Mm-hmm.
So this just kind of makes sure you get there. Like
Yeah.
I don't mind the design on this.
Yeah, it's not totally kind of fighting against what I'm imagining this deck wants to do, but yeah, no, we don't have to make a big point of it. That being said, I do like this card though. Like as a card, I think that it's actually pretty powerful.
Only if you have dinosaurs.
Yes,
Like if you're not
yes.
gaining like a 3 life, it's not doing much.
No, but you have to.
So,
But it's nice that you don't have to like sequence things weird. It's just whenever if you just have one right in your hand or
Yeah.
battlefield.
Yeah.
C plus.
Yeah, well, in the dinosaurs, I don't want to play it at all in non-dinosaurs.
Mhm.
So again, I'm not going to give it a split grade because
No.
I think it only goes in one deck. And in that deck, I think it's a C plus.
Yeah, I like that. Next up, we got Watley's Final Strike. 2 and a green for an instant. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And it deals its damage equal to another creature. So, nice little bite spell, instant speed bite. The +1. Not always going to get a combat blowout, but sometimes, like, you attack your 2/3 into their 2/3, and you win that combat and fight something else, or, bite something else. But we've had this card before in the form of Ambuscade, and that was one of the better versions of this sort of thing. So it's fine. These green fight spells are always a little bit worse than I think a lot of people think they are. They get taken higher than I think they should, but it's a fine fight spell or bite spell.
Yeah, it's a lot worse than Clear Shot
Yes.
because you're never gonna win a combat with it.
Right, unless you have that
Unless
situation I just said, right? 2/3 and a 2/3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Or like your creature has, first strike
Yep.
and the extra power is enough. Like there are some scenarios, but it is also nice that again with the green white card, this does pump the power, and there's less instant speed removal to really blow this out mid combat. So I do think this is going to perform fairly well.
Yeah. So what do I give it? C plus?
C plus. Yeah.
Cool. What do we have next?
Next, we have In the Presence of Ages, which is a 2 and a green instant. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a creature card and or a land card from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard.
So this is where the people are going real deep on descending, where you're like, yeah, I want to get to descend 8s. I'm like a black-green grindy deck, and you can afford to take some time off at some point, put some cards in your hand, fill up your grave, and it's reasonably good at doing that.
It's an instant. It's not a permanent,
Mm-hmm.
and it can miss. Like if you're ever not drawing 2 cards with this, it's quite bad. So I don't like this card. Like this is part of the reason why I don't think green black is really a deck because this card has to be better for green black to
Right,
work.
yeah. It would be a lot better if this happened to be like a flash enchantment or something. I kind of liken this to the, like you mentioned, the blue 3/2 is maybe a little bit better than we gave it credit for. That mills 3 when it enters the battlefield. But this card, of course, is not a permanent itself. That's kind of the break point,
Yeah, but
right?
this is 0 tempo. Like that's the big difference here.
Yeah, but yeah,
And
that's
that
that's
thing,
huge too. It's an ETB, yeah.
if you mill the 3/2,
Mm-hmm.
you're adding to your descent count. Like
Yeah.
this is not adding to
No, no,
that.
no, no. I'm completely on board with what you're saying here. I wasn't trying to like talk this card up too much.
I've written my grade down.
Yeah,
So.
D.
I wrote D plus,
Okay,
but yeah.
yeah, fair enough. We got Castlem's Stone Tree up next. This is 2 and a green for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 6 cards of your library. You can put a land from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Rest on the bottom of any order, and it says Craft with Cave for 6 mana, 5 and a green. Backside is a just 5/5, 5/5 artifact creature.
Yeah, it's weird that like crafting with a cave even out of your graveyard is a real downside because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the cards care about caves in graveyard. So it's not even like that great in the deck that wants it.
Yeah, it's just kind
And
of
like
an
a 6 mana 5/5 is like the blue common is a 6 mana 6/6 with upside.
yeah, this is just like it's a very clunky ramp spell and a very clunky 5/5. I think I'm just like totally out on this. Is it wrong to give this like a D minus or an F?
Yeah, I'll join you with a D minus.
Okay,
We'll
yeah.
condemn this card.
Yeah, man, yeah, just so yeah, if it was just like craft with the land, I'd be kind of into that too, maybe. But that doesn't even
Well,
change
it's
it that
also
much.
missed, right? Like you're not guaranteed a
Yeah,
hit in the top
yeah,
six.
it's not likely you miss, but there is still a chance. Like you're like what 95 to or 5% to miss or something. All right, next up we've got Malamet Scythe. This is 3 and a green for an equipment. It's got flash. The equipped creature gets
Green.
sorry 2 and a green. Yep, so three mana altogether. It's got flash. The equipped creature gets +2/+2, and when it enters the battlefield, you attach it to target creature you control. Equip cost of 4.
Yeah, we've seen cards like this before, and they're usually not great.
Mm-hmm.
I am a little bit optimistic about this again, just because there's a little bit less removal. It's an artifact, you can tap it, it's a send. All the same reasons we've been listing this whole time. I do think I'm gonna play these some number of times and not be totally disappointed with it. For that reason, maybe a D plus.
Yeah, that's like the perfect way to put it. I'm gonna play it sometimes and not be totally disappointed with it. Like that's my exact thought too. Yeah, D plus sounds good for the scythe.
Okay.
Next up is River Herald Guide. This is 2 and a green for a 3/1 Vigilant Merfolk. And when it ETBs, you explore.
So this is the closest to having an actual blue-green card because I don't think this card is that great
Mm-hmm.
in like if you don't care about the explore specifically.
Yeah, because I think that 3/1 draw a land is a good deal, but
Hmm.
it's significantly worse if you miss. Like some of these explore cards, if you miss or you don't miss, it doesn't matter that much. Like you're not that sad. This one, I think you're actually pretty sad if you miss on the land.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I still think it's decent.
Yep.
I'll give it like a C minus, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna give it a C, but yeah,
Okay.
I think agree generally. Mineshaft Spider is next. This is 3 and a green for a 3/4 reach. When it ETBs, you mill 2 cards.
Yeah, so this is closer to a payoff for like this is a green black card to me,
Yeah,
right? Like the descendant card.
it's
And it's decent stats, 3/4 reach.
yeah,
It's we like that's a step up from Giant Spider with an ETB.
right.
So I think in if you're not green black, I don't think you're going to want to play this. We'll give that caveat, same as we've been doing with a bunch of other cards. In green black, I think this is like a C.
Yeah, I think this is just totally fine. Not exciting if you don't care about the send, but it's a C in the deck that wants it.
Yeah.
What do we have next?
Next is Pathfinding Axejaw, 3 and a green for a 4/3 dinosaur. When it enters the battlefield, it explores.
Yeah, so this is an example of one that you're pretty happy with no matter what happens, right? You explore and you hit a land, great. You're 4 mana, 4/3, drew a land, and if you miss, you get a 5/3 or 5/4 that's surveilled. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and this is actually like, funnily enough, this works in every single pair.
Yeah.
Right? Because in red green, it's a dinosaur. In green white, it can potentially have more power than its base power. In green black, it like puts potentially a card into your graveyard and is a permanent. And in green blue, it explores. So this is like the gluiest of green cards.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a good one. I like this. I'm kind of going between C plus and B minus. I think it's closer to a C plus, but it's again one of the better green commons we've seen. Like actually imagine the frog into this. Like that's a pretty sick curve.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I had more faith in green, I would give this a B minus.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a C plus just because I don't think green is good.
Yeah, I'm into that. Malamet Veteran. This is 4 and a green for a 5/4 trample. Descend 4 whenever you attack, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be itself, which is different than a lot of these weird clunky 5-drops have been in previous sets. So if you're like, and it's not that hard to be descended on turn 6 when you're attacking with this.
Yep.
So I thought this thing was going to be like super clunky, but I've got a little bit of belief in it.
Yeah, that was my journey with the card too. I don't think it's a great card by any means, but it's definitely not like, oh, like, don't want to play this 5. I would give it a D plus, maybe C minus.
Yeah, I was going to go C minus, assuming that you're like doing some amount of descending type of thing.
Yeah, I'll stick with my D minus or D plus. Walk with Ancestors is up next. This is 4 and a green for a sorcery. Return up to 1 target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Discover 4.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a 5-mana Eternal Witness, right? Because like,
Yeah.
you're gonna hit a 2-drop some portion of the time.
Yeah, or it's awkward if you do hit a creature with this, you're very happy, I think, or like reasonably happy. And if you don't, it's pretty bad because you're spending 5 mana to draw 2 essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not very high on this.
No,
I think there's better ways to spend your mana in the late game.
I agree with that. D minus.
D plus.
Okay, yeah.
D. Well, we'll meet in the middle. I'll say D.
Sure. Cavern Stomper is up next. This is 4 green for a 7/7. It's huge. 7/7 dinosaur. It scries 2 when it enters the battlefield. Okay. And 3 and a green. Cavern Stomper can't be blocked by creatures with power 4 or less this turn. Sorry, 2 or less. Yeah, 2. So the regular ability you'd expect from that kind of line of text. Pretty solid for a 6-drop common.
Yeah, I have quite a bit of belief in this guy actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is that survives the base, like the murder, unless it's descended.
True.
Survives a braid. Like there's not a lot. If they bounce it, you get to scry again. Like this is, I mean, Imperial Oath was split across 3 bodies, but this is scry 2, 7/7 worth of stats. Not easy to answer. I think this card's actually quite good.
Yeah, me too. I think that I would be pretty happy to put this in either a slow like a descend black green deck, or find at the top end of your dino deck. I just don't know if I want to dip into C plus. I think I will though. I think it's got enough going on here. Type line,
I wrote
scrying.
down C plus.
Yeah,
for myself.
Type down scrying, good ability. All right, yeah, C plus for the Cavern Stomper. And that brings us to the last green common here. Nurturing Bristleback is the land cycler. 7 mana, 5 green for a 5/5 dinosaur. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 3/3 dinosaur creature token. And of course, has 4 cycling for 2.
So this is the thing you want to reanimate in your black deck.
Yeah, just like massive amount of stats. And it doesn't get blown up by a removal spell. You get a little bit of value still.
Yeah, this thing's huge. If you're not doing that, it's still like solid, but again, the dinosaur deck doesn't really seem to lack stuff to do for expensive amount of mana.
Yeah, this is probably the best of the land cyclers, because it not only is it, I think, just the biggest impact, but also, like you mentioned, it plays in like a black-green reanimator style deck. Hmm.
I was still just gonna go with C on
Yeah,
this.
I think so too. And that maybe we gave one of the other ones a C plus, but yeah, I think this is a card I wouldn't be too sad to put in my deck. Let's go
No,
to
none of the land cyclers got, so they were all either C's or C minuses.
yeah, and
And
we should
pretty, pretty,
actually. I think
yeah.
we touched on this, but I think we should put a stamp on that. That these are, if you did play Lord of the Rings and didn't play March of the Machine, 2 mana is just like a lot different than 1 mana for these cycling cards. Uncommons now. Cenote Scout. This is a single green mana. Merfolk. It's a 1/1. And when it ETBs, it explores.
Great.
Yeah, fantastic. Really, really good. Put it to the test again. 1 mana, 1/1, draw a card. Great. 1 mana, 1 mana, 2/2, surveil one. Great. I think this is a B.
E?
Yeah.
I'm with you on
Great. Super efficient. Glowcap Lantern. Single green mana for an equipment. When the equipped creature has, you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and whenever this creature attacks, it explores. It's got equipped to cost for 2.
Yeah, so this is our blue-green payoff.
Yeah, there we
And
go.
it's terrible.
Yeah, not very good.
So bad.
Oh, yeah.
It's just an F, right?
Just an F.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll join you. Yeah, I kind of was like dipping in the D territory, but the more F's the better. I like it. Yeah, I think that just quickly for people at home that are kind of like, I don't really get why that's an F. What's your what would you say to them?
Well, so it doesn't do anything on defense.
Mm-hmm.
It costs, like, if you pay green and then pay 2 mana to equip, and then attack and give your creature +1/+1 by, exploring a non-land to the top. If that creature trades in combat, then you're back to square one again. You still haven't even. It's worse than just giving +1/+1 in general in a lot of cases.
Yes. So that's actually a really good way to put it. That you're just like happier with that common artifact, the colorless artifact equipment that like the whatever the dark gun or whatever it was that gave Death Touch or Reach.
And it doesn't even let you look at the top card unless you've equipped it to something.
Wow, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it would actually be like not reasonably better, but that is a point that I'm surprised they didn't just like let you do that at any time.
Yeah.
Ixalan's Lorekeeper up next. Single green mana for a 1/1 human druid. Taps add a mana of any color, only to cast dinosaur spells or activate dinosaur abilities.
Yeah, so this kind of from Albi-1, there was Rustvine Cultivator, where you didn't get to tap it for mana every turn, but if you got to tap it for mana every other turn, it was still decent. And I kind of view this the same way. Like, there's no way you're going to tap this for mana every turn unless you've just got an insane number of dinosaurs.
Right.
But if you can tap this twice throughout a game, it's still going to be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's not like there's so many cards that it's so funny. I'm looking, my brain is like initially looking at this through Wilds of Eldraine tinted glasses, and I'm like, oh, excellent, so bad, but like there's just like not that much punishment for being a one tapped creature. Just don't attack into blue mana on turn 1 if you can't, or on turn 2 if you don't have a dinosaur to cast, because they can eat that. So what do you want to give it?
I do think that this is going to be heavily overdrafted.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think the dinosaurs deck in general will probably be overdrafted.
I agree with that too.
It should be that if you're the dinosaur deck, you're able to wheel these things, and I don't think that's going to be the case.
No, because number one, dinosaurs is like a cool thing that people want to draft, and it's also like a quote unquote obvious thing where it's like, oh hey, I get it, I just put dinosaurs in my deck.
Yeah. So again, assuming best case scenario, like that you have, how many do you even need? Do you need like 12 dinosaurs?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I would say maybe very bare minimum like 10.
Yeah, okay. Assuming you have like 10, it's still like it's a bad top deck. It's I want to give it, like, you're not cutting it from that deck, so I guess a C plus, like best case scenario.
Yeah, I was gonna just give it a C. I think that like I
Yeah,
think it's gonna be hard to get to that ceiling of like 10 plus dinos in the first place, and even when you do, it's not amazing. So
yeah.
Malamet Battleglyph is up next. Sorcery, single green mana. Choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control. If the creature you control entered the battlefield this turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then those creatures fight.
Yeah, this card's really interesting. Because normally you just want to curve out and then end with this, or use this like, pre-combat with a trick, but you kind of have to be playing off curve for this to be best, but then it like catches you up for playing off curve, so it's a really strange card.
I think it's just pretty good. Like, imagine just going, they play it 2, you play it 2, and then fight. I don't know. That's a pretty good turn 3. You have a overstated creature. Their 2 is dead. I don't like
Yeah, like
Prey Upon that much in general, but
that's what I was gonna say. Prey
yeah.
upon is okay, but not great.
Mm-hmm.
This certainly has upside. Like a counter is really
It's good.
good on this.
Yeah, and being 1 mana. I
Yeah,
do.
Hunt the Witch has been a good like a first pickable card in some older sets.
Right, yeah, this is like, yeah, 3 whole mana less. I do think that this card is like, often when we've seen cards like this where, they're 1 to 3 mana, I think they either they give the creature +1/+1 or put a counter on it before they fight, end up being more often good than not. So I'm going to start optimistic on this one. I'm going to give it a C+, but certainly, and especially in a set without a ton of instant speed interaction, I'm a little higher on it.
I think it's better than C plus.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, we're the classic, like, we're flipping our letter grades here with our conversation. You want to give it a B minus?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a B minus.
All right, I'll join you there.
Okay.
What do we have next?
Next, we have Twists and Turns. Green for an enchantment. If a creature you control would explore, instead you scry 1 and then explore. When this enters the battlefield, you explore. And when a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, you transform it into a cave that taps for green mana. And you can pay 3 and a green and tap it to look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You can reveal a creature, put it into your hand, and the rest on the bottom in a random order.
That front side, though, it's just like not very good.
Well, I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, talk me up on it.
So, green mana to draw a land.
And it will likely more. I don't want to say more likely than not necessarily, because I don't know if my math is right on that. But seeing 2 cards, you're pretty likely to hit a land.
Right. You get 2 looks at a land if you want one. Or like late game when you don't want the land, it's gonna scry 1 away for you. And then it does like flip into a pretty powerful land.
Yeah, I like the land. But then, like,
and you don't need to spend any mana to do that, right? Like it just flips for you.
No, but you're 7 mana going on 8 at that point.
Yeah, but then you have stuff to spend it on.
Yeah,
you're hitting creatures.
I see. No, yeah, I see what you're saying. Your point was just that, like, it's not like an additional hoop to jump through. You don't have to like spend any more mana at that point.
Yeah, you're not like crafting it into something.
Yeah.
It's working for you. Yeah. Like you can't play this on turn 1 and get a land because it needs a creature to explore onto.
Yes, and that's actually something we didn't mention explicitly about the map tokens, but those are that same way too. You need a creature, and if they kill the creature in response, you won't get the benefit.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna be low on it. Like I agree on all the things.
I was gonna give this like a C minus.
I was gonna go D plus, but I also think you need to be exploring more than just this. Like I think you need to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 explore cards in your deck to get a little bit more before you're hitting your 7th land drop.
Right, but like, don't you think every green deck is gonna have like an axe jar or 2?
Yeah,
and then,
most likely. That's fair. All right. I'll join you at C minus then.
Sure. I gotcha.
We got Explorer's Cache up next. 1 and a green for an artifact. ETBs with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. It says whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on the cache, and move a +1/+1 counter from Explorer's Cache onto target creature. Activate only as a sorcerer. It's just moving all these counters all around from your creatures back to this, and sort of Ozolith-esque.
This card actually kind of, I think, is going to play out like a Glorious Anthem.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this card is not actually that bad.
Yeah, a 2-mana Glorious Anthem is very powerful. If you do put both counters on the same creature, you're only getting one of those back.
Yeah, diminishing returns.
But if you have a creature who's explored and gotten a counter on it, then that's going to add more counters to this.
Yeah. I guess not diminishing returns, but you're strip mining yourself, not in the magic sense, but in the metaphorical sense here. I'm just like kind of. I'm a little bit hesitant about this thing that just like it almost reads like an equipment in that sense, where it's like it has to be very good before I'm willing to consider it, and it might be that. I'm not trying to discount that. I just had that little voice in the back of my head that's like, yeah, but like, how good is this going to be in your average green deck where like you're maybe not really gonna be getting into combat that often? Like you're gonna be playing a frog into like another value creature. It's not the worst, but I like let's say this was a white card, it'd be a lot better, I would say.
Well, it's insane in green white.
Yes, green white specifically. There you go.
And I do think like out of all the green pairs,
Mm-hmm.
like green red based on the uncommons, but green white based on the commons, like I think green can be an aggro color.
Yeah.
And this card's going to be pretty good in that. I'm going to give this a C plus.
Yeah, I'm willing to go an optimistic. That's what I was going to give it to. I'm willing to be optimistic about this because I do think that all the kind of hesitation I have is outlined by the fact that it is a strong card on what it's doing. So C plus for the cash.
Okay.
All right, what's up next?
Next is Glimpse the Core. 1 and a green for a sorcery. You can either search your library for a forest and put it into play tapped, or you can return a cave from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I think that second line of text is like kind of whatever. 2 mana rampant growth for just a forest.
Early game you're gonna want to ramp. Late game you're gonna rebuy like your value cave, right?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah. That's the way.
so it's a rampant growth that's potentially better in the late game.
Yeah, rampant growth it doesn't fix you for what it's worth,
Right.
and that's like
Right.
a meaningful downside.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't think this card's that good.
I don't think it's
I don't think it's that
terrible.
bad either, but like I would give it like a C minus.
Yeah, I was gonna go C, but sure.
Yeah, I think you're just gonna want to play it too, like a 2 mana creature over this most of the time in most decks.
Well, a lot of like green red. We've talked about how there being hardly any dinosaurs at 2 mana. Like this is exactly what you want to do on for your dinosaur deck.
Do you though? Because like you ramp into like a 4/3, and then they interact with it, and you're like, all right, they're going like I think that's what my point is. I think you'd rather just be like 2/3/4.
Well, I'm gonna stick with my C.
All right, I'll stick with my C minus. Next up, we got Tendril of the Myco Tyrant. 1 and a green for a 2/2 fungus wizard. Great everything on this card. 7 mana activated ability, 5 green. Put 7 +1/+1 counters on target non-creature land you control. Becomes a 0/0 fungus creature with haste, and it's still a land.
And what word is not on this card, Alex?
Sorcery speed?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. There's a lot of words on
Hey,
it.
they finally let us have some fun.
Yeah, and I think it's fine. Like I think so. It's interesting because it's so. It does nothing forever. Not nothing, but it's just a bear forever, and then it turns into like you must kill this thing or else you will die.
Yep. Kind of. What was that red 1-drop that does nothing until you have 6 lands, then it starts pumping out dragons?
Oh, Dragon Master Outcast. Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
There's. I mean, not exactly the same, but I do think like this. If you're worried about craft decks outvaluing you in the late game, like this card single-handedly will go over those.
Yeah, it is a little bit awkward in the play patterns once you get to 7, though. I was thinking because you like get to 7 mana, you activate it. Okay, so you have a tapped creature, you untap. You can't attack with that creature unless you draw another land because you can't keep like pumping them. So obviously it's a nitpick, but just something to note. I think
you can just pass again and then activate another one and another one and another one.
Yeah. You want to give this a C plus?
I don't think it's gonna come down to that 7 mana ability. I'm just gonna give it a C.
No, I agree with that. I think most of the time, like green, this looks to me like a way to let green use all of its lands that it's explored. Right? It's kind of I think that's the idea. But like not all your decks are gonna be like turbo exploring or anything. So you're just like not gonna get to the 7 mana every game. What's up next?
Next is Quati Scavenger, 2 and a green for a 3/2 raccoon. And when it enters the battlefield, if there are 4 or more permanents in your graveyard, return target permanent from your graveyard to your hand.
All right. I am relatively into this one. This is a good effect, and it's going to be turned on relatively soon. It's kind of like the Tome Seeker, right? The bargain Tome Seeker from the last set a little bit. Do a little bit of work, get a little bit of a thing from the back from the graveyard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so you're never playing this on turn 3.
Yeah, if you can help
like,
it.
Well, you don't want to, right?
No.
It's just a 3/2. So the fact that it costs 3 mana doesn't really help you that much. Like, I mean, we've seen like 5 mana 3/3 return a thing from Marcher Machines was not great.
Hmm.
And like you do need to turn this thing on. There's going to be times when you top deck it even on turn 6 and it's still not active.
Hmm.
I'm not as high as it sounds like you might be on
No, no,
this.
I think I'm probably not, I think I'm talking myself up a little bit. Or I'm making it sound like I like it more than I do. I was just gonna give this a C.
Okay, yeah, that sounds. And C is like assuming you're trying to descend, right? You're not pulling this in every green deck, are you?
I think it's fine to like. Okay, so I've been throughout this review kind of looking at Descend 4 as like it's mostly fine, just to put it in your deck. But I guess there is a certain point that comes where it's like, well, if all of my stuff is Descend 4, and it's all going to be vanilla stuff in the early game, then you do have to worry about that. Um, no, you're probably right. You're probably right. You do have to be a bit picky about where you play this because it's just too
Like
vanilla
I
otherwise.
think green white is an aggro deck, and you're not going to play it there.
Mm.
Green blue is like God knows what that deck's doing, so forget that. Green red, you don't really like need this because you're just
No.
like turns 5 to 8, you're just tapping out
Yeah.
basically every turn. So it's only like a green black card in my opinion.
Yeah, and there's actually been a lot of cards that kind of been like green cards that have kind of seemed just green black card.
Right, but there's also not green ways to mill you effectively,
Right.
which is part of my peeve with
But
this whole thing.
explore.
Yeah, yeah. There's good. Yeah, you see your best rare on top, and you're like, well, I'll put in my graveyard because I got to descend. Like,
Yes. Gameplay loop accomplished. All right. So you want to
yeah.
see?
Yeah, I wrote down C for it. Yeah. Next up, we have Spelunking, 2 and a green for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Then you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. If you put a cave on this way, you gain 4 life. And lands you control enter the battlefield untapped.
So we're still going to be relative non-believers of these type of cards, and I mean this one specifically is not very good.
Yeah, it does seem like out of all the base colors your cave deck wants to be, green is the most likely. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have the frog that taps for any color. You have this thing. You have there's even a couple of rares that are green that I saw that are cave based type of things. So and then there's the rampant growth that returns a cave. So I do think they're trying to make like the splish splashy deck green based. Probably if you're caves, you're going to be green X splashing one or two more other colors. But similar to the caves, I'm going to give this like a C.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
Next up, a old favorite returning here, Thrashing Bronzodon, 1 green for a 3/4 dino. 1, sack it, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and probably better than it was the last time around because now we have a lot of artifacts on the ground.
Yeah, the type matters, the size matters, and the ability matters.
Yep,
This looks like a good card.
B. Let's give it a B.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Colossadactyl. This is great. 2 green for a 4/5. It's a dinosaur. It's got reach and trample. Very simple.
I like this card too.
Yeah. Nothing flashy.
Yeah, really, really good size though.
Yeah, good in offense, good in defense. C plus.
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to give this a B minus.
Ooh, okay, okay.
I think this card, like, it's just there's not a lot of things that are just size and tempo in this set, and those two abilities are both really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll stick with my
And
C plus. But
it takes combat tricks really well. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
gonna go B minus.
All right. What's up next?
Next, we have Jade Seedstones, 3 and a green for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among any, well, basically any number of target creatures you control, and craft with a creature for 5 green. The backside is a 7/7 that enters the battlefield. Sorry, when it enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to the mana value of the exiled card used to craft it.
Ooh, okay, okay. So
Yes, kind of an aggro front side and a control backside.
yeah, a little weird. Little
Yeah.
weird. I think that almost makes it just an aggressive card then, because like you just don't really, you can't really afford to play the Seed Stone in your like grindy black green deck. I mean, maybe it's not as bad. I mean, I think it's not very good. So yeah, it almost makes it just like an aggro card with a mana sink.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's just a little too awkward with both sides really do go in totally opposite decks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I want to like this card. I love these. I love the big green things that gain life, but I think it's just a little bit too at odds with itself.
Gonna give it. You want to go like as low as D plus, or do you think it's better than that?
I think it's a little bit better than that. Like, imagine this in green white, right? Where you are exploring to some amount where you're going to be hitting that lander. Like, I don't think it's crazy even in your green white aggro deck, which I don't think is going to be like super low to the ground 16 lands aggro. A little more just like I'm proactive. You're going to hit 7 mana sometimes, and this is going to be a fine card in there. So I would give it like a C in green white.
Okay, I'll go up to C minus then, just to not have us be 2 grades different.
Last card here, Earthshaker Dreadmaw. This is 6 mana, 4 green for 6/6 trample. It's a dino, and it draws a card for each dinosaur you control when you cast. Or sorry, when it enters the battlefield. You draw a card for each dino.
Each other.
Each other.
Yeah.
Does not count itself, yeah.
Doesn't count itself. Yeah.
I mean, if you're just drawing one card, you're pretty happy about that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you draw, each card you draw is going to make you very happy.
Yeah.
Without any card draw, it's still like not even unplayable.
No, just like Colossal Dreadmaw is definitely has had a bit of a fall from grace, but definitely is not unplayable. Yeah, I think this is probably like a B minus, B maybe in the B range. Yeah.
I think I'm going to stick with B minus.
All right. Well, that's the end of our commons and uncommons. Mark, what do you? I'll ask you one more time. What final thoughts, things that glue the set together? What are your last thoughts before we dip into the rares and the mythics tomorrow?
Yeah, so we already covered green already, kind of at length, and how we don't think it's great. There are quite a lot of pretty good uncommons at green though that are gonna, I don't know if we want to say the word trap people, but at least appease people for pick one, pack one choices. But it doesn't really do anything particularly well. The uncommons do look like they point towards dinosaurs though, because you have the 1-drop that produces mana, you have the 3-drop that kills an artifact or enchantment, you have the 4-drop with reach and trample, and then you have this thing. So I think that the archetypes have a chance at being fleshed out. The only one I really think has no hope is blue-green.
Yeah, and I wasn't as big of a denier until we kind of went through things, and obviously prompted by what you said, but no, definitely agree with that. And actually, one thing I want to I don't know if I'm completely taking this statement back, but after we went through things, I think things are a little more streamlined than I might have thought at first. Like, I think that it's not that you can't mix and match your lanes as you're drafting, but there are a lot of pretty pointed things. So, like, for example, you said with the artifact deck, you do want to be all artifacts. With the Descend deck, you want to be all permanent. So that cuts off some amount of good spells you might want to draft. With the Dino deck, I think you want to be pretty heavy dinos if you're doing that thing. So, not to say there's no mix and matching, but a little bit less so than I might have thought.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a case of, like, let's just assume green blue and green black are maybe not the decks, and then the other 8 decks, like each drafter is supposed to find one of those lanes to be in, and then you kind of just stick with your lane and hope for the best. And so I mentioned this before, but I think the set's going to be really interesting for the first month while all these trinkety things get figured out. But I am a little worried for the longevity of this set.
Yeah, especially if there are a few more flop archetypes than not. Like, I don't think that's a huge indictment of a format. Like, I know some people didn't like Wilds of Eldraine because the tap deck didn't work or XYZ deck didn't work. I don't think that's a game change, like a deal breaker by any means. But for some people it is. So yeah, we'll see. And like I mentioned, if you are watching, listening, and if you're watching, you're listening a few days in the future, we record this on Tuesday, the 7th today? I think, yeah, today's the 7th, and if you're watching on the 9th or the 8th, the next set is going to be out, or so the next iteration of this, where we do the mythics and the rares, is going to be out already, and if not, then look forward to that for tomorrow. People watching here on Twitch, same time, same place, 5 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, back for those rares and mythics, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
See ya.